It's 7 p.m. on the dot, and great to see everyone here. Oh, and North Spirit Lake this week, and everything is great. Fantastic, Michelle. My name is Grace Suva, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar entitled Learning from the Earth, Supporting Wellness Through Connection to the Land. And this webinar is hosted by the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario in partnership with Nishnawbe Aski Nation, the Chiefs of Ontario, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, the Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association, and the Ontario First Nation Young People's Council. And as part of RNAO's public commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action, we would like to dedicate this webinar to all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis across Canada in honor of National Indigenous History Month. We'd also like to acknowledge that our work and the work of RNAO members takes place on traditional Indigenous territories across Ontario. And we also wish to acknowledge that the office of the RNAO is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. This territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We also recognize that tonight's webinar participants are located in other traditional lands across Ontario. And today, this land is still the home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis from across Turtle Island. And we are very grateful to have this opportunity to work on this territory. By personally making a land acknowledgement, we are all taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back to over 10,000 years. We encourage you to learn about the land you reside on and the treaties that are attached to it. Land acknowledgements are an act of reconciliation, and we are all doing our part. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Gahandagwas Diane Longboat, who will be doing the traditional opening. And she's a member of the Turtle Clan Mohawk Nation at Six Nations Grand River Territory, Canada. She is a ceremonial leader, traditional teacher, and healer. Since 2013, Diane has served as elder for the Center for Addiction and Mental Health and became the senior project manager, guiding directions implementation, the CAMH strategy to improve practices and partnerships with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. She led the development of the ceremony grounds for CAMH to establish the Sweat Lodge, Sacred Fire, and Medicine Gardens. Diane is the founder of the Soul of the Mother, a healing lodge on the shores of the Grand River at Six Nations Grand River Territory, and the founder of First Nations House at the University of Toronto. She has published extensively on Indigenous education law and policy for the Chiefs of Ontario and the Assembly of First Nations. She was the Indigenous Education Advisor for the Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne, and the Ontario Minister of Education, Minister Nadeau Harris and Minister Hunter. And recently, Diane was co-chair for the development of the Indigenous Peoples Program at the Parliament of the World Religions Global Gathering in Toronto for 10,000 delegates. Diane is recognized as an evolutionary leader by the Source of Synergy Foundation in New York City. She is a board member of Honoring Indigenous Peoples and a member of the Council of Elders of many organizations in North America. So now I'm going to turn it to Gahandagwas for the traditional opening.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to be with all of you, and I send my warm and loving greetings out to you no matter where you're located. I always like to begin with a little bit of smudge, and I do that because I want to join our hearts and minds together with this medicine. It's sage medicine, and we always believe that no matter where we're standing in those four directions, that this medicine will reach into our hearts and our homes and bring us together with one mind. This is an important evening for us because we have the voices of young people who are going to lead us through some of the most challenging discussions of our time and also inspire us with their energy and their foresight and their vision for what the world can be. So I offer just a few words that go along with the Ahudum Gullywood Ekwa that my family and I do at sunrise each day. That Ahudum Gullywood Ekwa it's a long invocation of gratitude and love to the Creator and to all the beings in creation, to all the ancestors and to the celestial beings, our elder brother, the sun, and our grandmother, the moon, and all the spiritual beings. So These words that I will add go along with that long invocation we offered this morning. Nyawa sangwe disam garanunkwa, skana kahandakwa sinya. So grateful to you, Sangwe Disam, for such a beautiful day, for the gift of life for one more day, for all of the spiritual beings that are watching over us, teaching us, guiding us, correcting us in our behavior. I give thanks for all human life on the earth, all the beautiful faith traditions and languages and cultures that make up this human family and make our life here on the earth so rich. I give thanks this day for your vision to create this place we call our Mother the Earth, and for the foresight that you had to put a beautiful life force inside Mother Earth so that there could be a continuance of life here. That life force ensures that there is always the coming of seasons, the movement of waters, the air, and the renewal of the earth. I give thanks this day for that great council of creation, the oldest form of life on the earth, plant life, medicine plants, food plants that are food sustainers to us. Many, many beautiful plants, each of them having a very sacred and special role to play in that great circle of life. I give honor and all thanks this day to all of the animal life, those we call our brothers and sisters, and we draw our clan systems from them. We honor today all of the flyers, all those birds that have spent the winter here with us, those that have returned in the spring to sing to us and lift our spirits. We're so grateful for them. And then to all those beautiful beings that are in the great waters of the earth, the fresh waters, the salt waters, we are grateful to them. Some of them are food sustainers for us, and we thank them for sharing their life energy with us. We also honor all of the birth waters, all of the rain waters. Today we have the Lodihuelos, the thunder beings that are visiting us, and the 4 grandfather winds that are circulating about Mother Earth, refreshing and cleansing her. We are grateful this day, Sangwe Disong, for those 4 sacred beings that the Creator put in place to hover over the face of Mother Earth, to watch over us, to guide us, to help us in this journey of life, to bring us dream and vision and teaching. Above the earth are those celestial beings, those ones that are called the stars, that represent our ancestors, the billions that walked before us. We honor also the beautiful grandmother moon, takes care of female life and fertility and ensures the coming of new life. Pulling of the great tides and waters on the earth, and leaving medicine on the new moon and full moon for the female life. This day, Creator, we give thanks and honor to our brother, the sun, thinking of that great walk that our elder brother makes across the sky each day, bringing sunlight to the earth, ensuring that there is always a renewal of life that is here. We honor also the beautiful sky formation of stars called the Milky Way, a great highway that's joining the natural world to the sky world. On one side of that highway, the babies that are coming in to join us here. And on the other side of that highway, the souls of our beloved ones that are returning to the sky world, to that place of peace that we say our ancestors are burning their fires there. They are making prayers for us because they understand how weak and imperfect we are as human beings and how we need their help. So we give thanks this day, Creator, for the ancestors and for all the spiritual beings that are at your great council fire, the ones that answer our tobacco each day. And so to you, Sangwe Disong, the one who made all things, we thank you for creating that great circle of life here. We thank you for the two-spirit individuals, families that join us here within our circle, for the trans individuals who are going through a transition to become their true and real selves. We give thanks for all of the people of the earth. And we remember those also that are in psychiatric institutions, in jails, those who are unhoused and on the street, those who are in need of help this evening, whether it's illness or grieving. And so this day, Creator, we lift up all of our people to you, and we give thanks that we have young people who are standing in their own power and in their own gifts and are ready to take leadership in the world. So with these words, we give thanks, and I turn it back to Grace. Nyawa, miigwech.
Miigwech, Elder Diane, for those beautiful, inspiring words of thanks and gratitude. So in terms of the objectives for today's webinar session, it's a really exciting panel of presenters that we have today. And there are 4 specific objectives that they're going to aim to address. One is to create and maintain connections between youth and healthcare providers across Ontario, as well as support the efforts of Indigenous youth in revitalizing Indigenous language and culture, as well as demonstrate through their words the importance of integrating land, language, and culture into wellness. And finally, to support access to traditional knowledge and shared experiences to increase youth's sense of cultural and personal identity and belonging. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. First is that the microphones and cameras are going to be off. And for participants who would like to be able to ask a question, there is a Q&A box that you can enter your questions or comments, and we encourage you to use that. And you have any technical questions in relation to your, I guess in relation to Zoom or Answer Garden, please write it in the chat box and Tanya will be able to assist you there. So we reserved at least about 20 minutes of today's discussion for networking as well as Q&A. And if we don't get to all of the questions, it's okay. We'll compile a list of those questions and then we'll make sure that all of your questions are answered by the presenters and will be circulated to you as a document. Just wanted to let you know, and I think some individuals were asking, is that this webinar will also be recorded and it's going to be archived for future viewing. So it will be posted on the RNAO website. And Tanya will link you when you sent the evaluation survey in regard to where you can find that. Just also wanted to let you know that the closed captioning and transcription is on for all participants during this webinar, should you need it. And this webinar is credited 2.5 hours for the Indigenous Certification Board of Canada. And so you will also receive that certificate of attendance once you complete the evaluation survey. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to your fantastic youth moderators for today. And they are Rachel Raddick and Cadence Steed. And Cadence Steed is from Washuk Onagum First Nation, and she is honored to be part of the Treaty No. 3 Youth Executive Council as a junior proxy, and is also studying nursing at Lakehead University. And then we have Rachel Raddick, Wabokwi, and she is an Anishinaabe, a proud member of the Chippewas of Georgina Island. She is a registered nurse with a passion for Indigenous health and leadership, and she's currently serving as the program manager for Indigenous health for RNAO, and she spearheads various Indigenous health programs and initiatives. She also supports the development as well as the implementation of best practice guidelines for Indigenous health. So before I turn it over to Cadence and Rachel, I would like to invite Marilee Nalgijik, the Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association's Chief Executive Officer, to bring greetings to all of you today. Thank you, Marilee.
Thank you so much, Grace. Before we begin, I would just like to say Nyawa Gandagas for your opening and well thought out words for all of us for this evening. It's always so nice to be with you and to share in these circles with you and to share this time with you. I learn so much every day and every time I'm with you and with all the members of this committee. I am Marilee Nalgijik. I am currently the Chief Executive Officer for the Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association, and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar series. I am in the Nishnawbe Algonquin territory of the Algonquin people in the National Capital Region, otherwise known as Ottawa. I'm originally from Fort William First Nation in Thunder Bay, and I am of Eagle Clan. I'd like to, first of all, recognize that RNAO has started this series, and this series has been a force of great learning, a wealth of our knowledge, our experience, our lived experience, and I really am so honored and privileged to be the voice and the advocate for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis nurses across the country. I am so humbled by the experience that I live through your ability to be the focal point for our community, the strength to our people, and that very grounding that our communities need. And our nurses are it, and they always get it done. I'd also like to recognize that CINA, Canadian Indigenous Nurses Association, is the longest standing Indigenous health organization in the country. We have been in existence now for 48 years. And we have at this point very successfully accepted the challenges that have come before us from our ancestors before us and from those challenges that we've received today as part of a learning opportunity so that we may help our nurses whom are stepping into a new century and into a new time in their professions. And we know that through these very challenging and unprecedented times, that nurses are looking to their allies and within their networks to strengthen their skills, develop enhanced training like these webinars as part of their learning process. And I want to thank the RNAO for getting the Indigenous Certification Board to looking at the hours that are needed for this process. I also see the opportunity that this webinar provides for our nurses and for our healthcare professionals and our allied networks to utilize the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, the 94 calls to action that are the sounding board for how Canada is going to respond to Indigenous healthcare, to Indigenous people, and to reconciliation. Reminding you that Indigenous people have nothing to reconcile, but we want to be at the table with our non-Indigenous partners while you work on frameworks, structures, regulatory, or legislative affairs that will impact the Indigenous community. We welcome those opportunities and we look forward to working with you on them. I am deeply honored and humbled, really, to be in the presence of such knowledge amongst our youth. And I'm comforted by knowing that the path that we have laid before you, you will succeed in helping grow for the generations that will come after you. I feel comforted in the knowledge that you bring forward to this table. And I'm so glad that I can be here with you tonight. And I thank you, Jimmy Gwetch. Merci beaucoup.
Well, merci, and Chimigwech Marilee for that wonderful greeting today. I'm now going to pass it on to Rachel to get us started in regard to the answer garden.
Perfect. Thanks, Grace. So first off, Chimigwech, Diane, for your traditional opening tonight. It's always so wonderful to see you and listen to your teachings. So it would miigwech for doing our opening, and miigwech to Marlee for your welcoming remarks, and thank you to everyone for joining tonight's webinar. So at this time, we would like to get to know about who is joining today's webinar. So we will be using what is called an answer garden software to ask you a few quick questions. So we would love if you were able to participate, and please note that these questions that are being asked and the information collected will help inform today's presentation. So we will ask 4 short questions, and kindly use the link that is in the chat box, which just popped up, to answer each of these questions. So our first question is, where are you joining us from today? So looks like a lot. Okay, lots of London, Niagara, Thunder Bay, Sioux Lookout, Thunder Bay. Nice. Okay, and then people in the chat too. Fort Francis, Kirkland Lake. Lots of answers rolling in. Norway, Housekeeping Nation, Thunder Bay, Nova Scotia. Well, we have a few from Nova Scotia. King Carden, Waterloo. I'm in Kitchener. Okay, and it looks like we're going to go on to our next question. So that is, what sector do you work in? And if you're a medical or nursing student, please identify what year of school that you're in. Community mental health nurse. Dental hygienist, awesome. Retired from the world of healthcare. I don't know, maybe we can pop the link in the chat again. Oh, it looks like Grace is already on it. Okay. So lots of mental health and policy, fourth year nursing students, community health nurse, public health nursing, dietitian intern, mental health, primary care. Oh, lots of fourth year nursing students. That's awesome. Stroke and tele I saw, youth mental health, primary care, policy, dental hygiene, long-term care and seniors mental health, health center and cultural practitioner, harm reduction. So we're from all over the place. That's great. Lots of different aspects of healthcare. And then our third question is, do you identify as First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and settler or ally? Oh, okay. Karina, I saw the back of your it was pretty quick, but I saw youth engagement coordinator, I think. Lots of allies, settler Ukrainian, First Nations, Métis, Nishnawbe, Mohawk, First Nation Treaty 3, settler and ally. And then please share a plant medicine that you've used before, if you've used any, or if you haven't, you can say that you haven't before. So rat root, hello, sema and sage and cedar, juniper, never used, bear root, sweetgrass, bear grease, dandelion root, raspberry, valerian root, raspberry tea, cedar baths, lavender, chaga. Okay. Well, that was great. So I'm now going to pass it over to Cadence, who is going to introduce our amazing youth panelists for tonight.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cadence. We would now like to introduce everybody to today's special guest speakers, Ernie Cobiness, Treaty 3 Youth Executive Council, and Quinn Miwasage, Nimki Youth Collective, and Jasmine Pyrozek, Traditional Eco Knowledge. First, we'll do Ernie Cobiness. Ernie Cobiness Jr. is a proud member of Buffalo Point First Nation and a youth representative on the Treaty 3 Youth Executive Council. The YEC represent the past, present, and future of the Nishnawbe Nation in Treaty Number 3. Ernie holds the environmental portfolio on the Youth Executive Council and is a strong advocate and protector of Treaty 3, Number 3 land and waters. Through his role on the Youth Executive Council, Ernie has participated in conversations on the Manitowoc, Inakanagowan, forestry management, nuclear waste management, and water protection. While on the Youth Executive Council, Ernie is committed to raising awareness about the challenges youth and communities experience, such as access to housing or environmental protection. Next is Quinn. Quinn is a Nishnawbe from Serpent River. Quinn is a Nishnawbe from Serpent River First Nation. He graduated from Algoma University with a Bachelor of Arts in Community Economic and Social Development and a certificate in Anishinaabe-Moan from Shingwuk Kinumaj-Gamik. Upon graduation, Quinn became a founding member of the Nimki Youth Collective, an Anishinaabe land-based language and culture revitalization initiative for young people. He currently lives in Nimki, Ajabikong, where he is reconnecting with the lands and waterways of his family and community. Next is Jasmine Pyrozek. Jasmine was raised on Lake of the Woods, Ontario, and is of Norway House Cree Nation. She shares plant medicine teachings working throughout Northern Ontario and Canada. She is focused on boreal forest, ethnobotany, archaeology, and cultural anthropology. She also studies plant medicine taught by Master Jean Flores of Mayantuatio, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong, Peru. Jasmine has shared knowledge in the United Kingdom to present at Breaking Convention 2019. Jasmine works as a speaker as a consultant integrating Western and traditional knowledge. She is growing her healing center, Boom Bay Integrative Healing, where she will offer plant medicines, teachings, and healing practices. Currently, Jasmine works as a plant medicine consultant integrating Western and traditional practices for type 2 diabetes treatment and recovery.
Miigwech, Cadence. We now welcome Ernie to do his presentation, and I'm not sure. Perfect. There you are.
Just want me to go anytime or what?
Yeah, it looks like we're ready. So whenever you are.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Who's controlling the slide here? Am I able to control the slide or? Oh, there we go. Sorry, just a little nervous, but once I get talking, probably won't get me to stop. How bonjour, Bomse, Gnu, I took them to stage, Nia Sheng Doji, Buffalo Point First Nation. Just want to talk a little bit about myself here. From Buffalo Point, Manitoba, southeast corner of Manitoba, and from the Ontario side, we're in the western corner. And I just like to acknowledge all the people that are here on the live, the people that are joining, and the people that are just getting here to listen to the knowledge from our youth, three speakers that are here. I'd like to acknowledge them for being here. I'd like to acknowledge the opening prayer for the kind words she had to say, and for our people and for this webinar. And like I said, just want to talk a little about myself. I was traditionally selected in September 2019 to serve a 4-year term. I hold a portfolio for the environmental that goes along with many other issues like the trapping, conservations, and then the water protection, resources management and law, forestry and fisheries. Just go to the next slide. As how I started out doing this work, it started off really young, as my dad teaching me, learning how to hunt, learning how to, step up for myself, do things for myself and for my people, fighting for others who can't stand up. At a very young age, I grew up in a very hostile environment, growing really fast, learning the rights and dues, and the rights and the wrongs, having a really strong background to my culture and to my people helped me continue for me to be a stronger person, and still helps me this day throughout the wellness of the culture and the language to our people. Throughout growing up, I was very surrounded by a lot of ceremonies. I was always around my family, through the pipes, ceremonies, shake hands, the midday gun, through my grandma and my grandpa. My grandpa is known as one of the founders of the group of 7 known across North America. There were 7 of them. And he really inspired me to do a lot of what I do now to help spread the awareness and our culture and language throughout Treaty 3 and throughout Canada. The name was Eddie Cobiness, and like I said, I started really young, and it took a really long process for myself to get over a lot of things for myself to learn, and to get over a lot of my own stubborn mistakes. It took a long time for me to understand that things take time, and like I said, it all started when I started learning the real heartaches of my communities, and then growing up with a lot of racism towards Indigenous people like myself in school when I had long hair. It took a big toll on me, and took a long time for me to get back to who I was, to figuring out that the wellness in our people and the spirituality is what really helped me survive my addictions, my hurts, my sorrows that I did throughout my life. And through that, it took me to a long journey of doing a lot of great things. First, it started with me learning how to let go of the things that really hurt me, but it took a long time. And like this photo I have in front of me is, sorry, it's just real emotional. The photos I have in front of me here is me taking my time, me and my dad, my cousin Pete Cobiness, Ernest Cobiness. When Standing Rock was happening, I decided to ask my dad I wanted to go down there because I needed self-healing. So when I went down there, I met a lot of great people. I met a lot of people who are doing their healing journeys. And I met a lot of ceremonies throughout my travels. A lot of great people. And through that, I learned how to sustain myself as a young Indigenous youth, and growing up and transitioning into a young adult, into a young man. That journey stuck to me throughout my protections and through its environmental protections of waters. It was not only there, it began from home, trying to clean up my reserve, trying to, keep the lively of our medicines, the animals, the waters, alive. Because a lot of these times when I was growing up, we had a lot of deer, we had a lot of fish, we had rice, and to this day, a lot of that has been taken away through the municipalities, through these corporations that our people need to be well educated about. Like when I went to Standing Rock, we were in Standing Rock to stop one issue, is that the pipeline DAPL and access pipeline. it took me a while to figure out myself and to come home. If you want to go to another slide. Winter. Like I said, it took me a long time to realize that a lot of my fight that had me being in Standing Rock is a lot of fights are in our backyard. A lot of our struggles are right at home, right in our communities, right in our household, sometimes our partners, you know. And sometimes we carry that, and a lot of that taught me to come back home and bring that the healthy connection and wellness and rehabilitation as a person through our culture, our language, and through our people and the lands, our ancestral lands that we have been to, all the water that connects us. Here we have a lodge. I do a lot of lodge making with my dad. We build like teepees, we build sweat lodges, brown lodges. And here it just took a process. It took a very long process and a lot of bickering between me and my dad for him to get me out here to do the work with him, because it's, you know, a lot of youth are really scared to get out and do things because they're scared of being told no. They're scared of not knowing and being told to not do those things. And this lodge helped me in a lot of ways that I'm sitting in right now. Helped me reconnect myself with my family, those providers, those elders, you know, adults, especially your family. And that's what really helped me connect myself, reconnecting with my traditional ways of how we do things. We have ceremonies for everything that happens, every little thing from the plants, you know, to the animals, to every little thing we have on this continent. And like these teepee poles, when we take these poles, it takes a long process of us going into the woods, sometimes traveling long ways just to get these. And we learned in a long time just doing these poles, it takes a lot of patience of doing things the right way. And sometimes, you think you're not doing the right thing, but it takes patience and takes time to understand that, learning and teachings and these teachings from our traditional ways and our elders doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. It takes time for us to acknowledge that healing in a lot of our youth. And so this brings back our community, it reconnects all of our community, because our community has lost a lot of connections with ourselves. A lot of elders have passed, and we have lost a lot of land, also with the environmental assessment with the animals, and also with our rice. We used to have rice up in the lakes, in Lake Ontario where I live. And like I said, due to the high levels of waters and the municipalities, like the mills, the dumping, the oils, the gold mines, it has a lot of effect. And for me, being a part of Standing Rock, we started Red Warrior Camp. There was a lot of people who fought against a lot of pipelines and a lot of other issues that were happening out to their territories, and that's what brought me together to fight, to stand up, to do something for my community and for myself. And the most foremost thing that I learned is that going out and doing the work, and while you're hurt and when you're hurt and you don't know what you're doing, you tend to hurt others because you didn't take that first step to heal yourself. It starts with yourself. It starts from within yourself, to healing yourself, rekindling that bundle within your spirit and your community, through passing on the knowledge and continuing on peacefully. And if you can go to the next slide. Like I said, it took a while to continue doing this. It took quite a bit of days, to get me doing what we had to do. It was a lot of struggles, a lot of pain, and I actually bled trying to put this lodge together. But like I said, it takes a while to do these things, and I wouldn't have been who I am today if I haven't been initiated into the American Indian movement as an Gitchida in Winnipeg. And I was in the roundhouse. I was initiated by Dennis Banks, Keith Leisher, Terry Nelson, Clyde Belcourt, and Frank Perro was there. And a lot of our members, surrounding members, AIM members from Winnipeg. If you continue again. You can go to the next one, Winter. Like I said, it reconnected us with me, to my people, my family, and you know, like my dad and I. And like that last there, it reconnected me with my dad because he does a lot of things for my community, and he helps me a lot of things. Every year, this is right here is because every year we go, we kind of go there to shoot and just to thrill there, to get a big game animal of hunting and killing something. For us, it's reconnecting our ancestral lands and our traditional rights, living on the lands and the 4 seasons of migrations of the movement of the animals. The ancestral lands, long time ago, you know, we used to have so much life, so much medicine, so much that we didn't have to overtake. Nowadays, it's so hard, and it's so hard to feed ourselves, to self-sustain ourselves through our lands. A lot of medicines, the loss of our lands, and the loss of our ancestral teachings and our rights. And this is why I understand my dad takes me out there to bring that, to relive that, the rights that we have, that we live in all of our territories. We have that right to live, to fish, to collect all of our medicines. And now that's being taken away through the environmental change and the nuclear waste, the forestries, the fisheries. It has taken a lot from us, and it brought me to this point to stand up, make a change for myself. And I wouldn't have that change if it wasn't for the YEC, the Youth Executive Council, and for the last prior Youth Council, Will Landon and Sheldon, who nominated me last September of 2019. For the lot of work I did traveling out the United States, going to different universities, speaking on awareness for other communities and also my community. We also went around raising awareness to addictions, drugs addictions, alcohol addictions, meth addictions. And a really great woman named Mama Jules. We call her Mama Jules because in Standing Rock, she was like a mother in our camp. She cared for everyone, loved everyone. And that's, you know, people like that is one of my main caregivers who made me want to stand up more and fight and not be scared, because it takes a lot to stand up, even as a youth, to stand up and say no to the things that are wrong, you know. And it takes a lot of big toll on youth nowadays to just even stand up and speak, because they don't get this chance. They don't have the opportunities in their communities or wherever they live, their households. You know, we all live in hard times. We all live in poverty in most areas, in most communities. So we all have a connection to connect with each other as youth. I believe in our youth are the leaders of the new age and the new world, to continue on with the next 7 generations, to continue. And that's why I really respect the YEC and our members like Kayla Morrison, Winter Lipscomb, and Liam George, and other reps. And like I said, I wasn't really well educated. You know, I didn't get to finish my schools for the things that were happening growing up in my community. It forced me to grow up quick and to learn off my surrounding, you know, caregivers, elders, my grandpas, my dad and my mom, you know, going through their struggles taught me a lot not to do the same things that they did. And like I said, the 4 seasons, we have 4 seasons, you know, winter, spring, summer, and fall. In our community, we always used to do that here. But after the loss of our elders and a little bit of our self determination to keep our culture together, building this roundhouse has reconnected our people to our land and back to our community and our language. And if it wasn't for Treaty 3, knowing that keeping our traditional rights and our heritage alive to this day, I'm really proud to be a part of Grand Council Treaty 3 Youth Executive Council, and also my Treaty 3 brothers and clan mothers and sisters who are out there with their pipes, ceremonies, sweat lodges, damigwans. You want to go to the next slide. And a lot of that has to go through the protections of what I do and what I've been doing in Standing Rock, what I did in Standing Rock, and bringing awareness to the other communities. Why I wanted to come back to YC when I was nominated. I'm not a very political person. I don't like being in front of others. That's why it's hard for me to speak. I don't like being out on like news feeds or anything. I don't like being a public person. But I'm really honored, and I'm happy to do whatever I have to do for my people and my communities and my next communities, my next families and to come. And like a lot of our lands, if we look at a lot of our lands throughout my hunting and through my trappings and learning when I'm being on the land, is the filtration of the waters, and the companies that go through these forestries. It has a major effect on our people. They may not know it, but our people live off this land. They need this land. This land provides a lot of health and wellness and community to our people. We have sacred sites, certain areas for medicines, certain areas for picking berries. Like I said, in forestry, have been wiped and taken that out. Acres and acres of land just for wood. Part of that is being destroyed and not being known. Filter to our lake park to keep our lakes and our streams clean. Those water be dirty without the filtration going to the lakes. I guess to these long and these cities, they need to understand our side of living and our.
Oh no, I think we might have lost Ernie.
I think his Wi-Fi might have been.
Winter, do you know how much left he had of his slides?
There was maybe 5 to 6 minutes left in his presentation.
Okay. I don't know, Tanya or Grace, what?
That's okay.
Okay.
We'll wait until actually Ernie comes back. And so I wonder if in the meantime, we can maybe start with another presentation. And then once Ernie comes back, then he can pick up where he left off.
Yeah, I think that works. Or he can finish off maybe at the end if Quinn's like into his presentation, right? So
yes,
everyone's pretty flexible.
Yeah.
Quinn, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I can start my presentation.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Bonjour, Kanawea. I got some slides, got the presentation for everybody. So let's see here. So first off, Chimigoch, Kanawea, Mumpigi, Bijayak, thank y'all for coming. Bizundai Kai, thank y'all for listening. Mr. Tungi win the Gabo, Ninago, Kwando them, Gnabding, Tonjaba, Nungo Dash, Nimki Ashpokang, Dijida. And we got can be quite we watch walk. So yeah, we really appreciate the invite. So my name is my GST name, I guess, Quinn Mwasagi, from Certain River First Nation, Ganabjing. It's what it's also known as. My community is a signatory to the Ramsey Treaty of 1850. My community is located on the north shore of Lake Huron between Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie. Currently live at Nimkiajbakong, which is a year-round lands-based language culture camp. So yeah, I'll jump into a little bit about the project we have and kind of, what I'm up to lately. So yeah, so I am one of the founding members of the Nimki Youth Collective, lands-based language and cultural revitalization initiative. And essentially we host lands-based culture camps and harvesting activities year-round, each season, each moon cycle. So depending on what's happening on the land is what we gear our activities, our culture camps, harvesting, processing, our learnings is directly tied to the land. So we try to make space for young people, families, community to come together. And I guess I'll share a bit more about it later. Just want to put an acknowledgement out there right now to our funders of this project, this initiative, Laidlaw Foundation. We just successfully received a grant from them, as well as the Youth Opportunities Fund through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. So I just want to take some time. I got a lot of pictures. I like pictures. So, yeah, just talk a little bit about Indigenous knowledge. Really quickly, just, some of the words I have. Nishnawbe is our language. The Kandaswan, it's our knowledge. Kinamage, the way we teach, that's directly tied to the land. That helps to inform our Odswin, which is our way of seeing the world, I guess, worldview. And that incorporates our Odzokonic, which is our legends, our stories, sacred stories, such as creation story. It's very much grounded in ceremony. And it helps us to understand, our relations, how everything we do is relational, about building a relationship with ourselves, nurturing that relationship with ourselves, being kind to ourselves, loving to ourselves, understanding our role in our families, in our community, in our nation as well. So it always involves an exchange of knowledge, intergenerational knowledge between our elders to our young people. And we always go forward with this understanding that we're an ancestor today. We are need to be making those decisions. I seen there was a Q&A earlier about why 7 generations ahead is because we know that we're an ancestor today, and we know that the decisions we make directly impacts our 7 generations into the future, also looking 7 generations behind us, to remain grounded as well. So, and there's this word here, Wabandazajik, which I think it's a really beautiful word. It how is understood and told to me is it essentially means those that are coming, just like Waban, Jesus, Kanegajeb. It always comes up, that sun always comes up every single morning, and you can count on it, and it'll be there no matter what. And same with that Wabandazajik, it's the coming of those people. And so roughly what it translates to is the future generations. It talks about those people that are coming. So we make decisions, with regard to those Wabandazajik. So, and we are the land, just as Ernest was talking earlier. Someone summed it up to me one time as violence to the land is violence to our bodies. I think that was the Native Youth Sexual Health Network that really shared that with me, and it stuck that with me is, when harm is done to the land in terms of pollution, or when we harm the land, the waters, it goes, and we're eating from the land, and we're drinking from the waters, and we're eating the food, the medicines. If the land becomes sick, then we too become sick. I guess in some fancy science term, they call that bioaccumulation. But this is something that Nishnawbe people, Indigenous peoples, we already knew that if the land is sick, then we become sick. So science is really catching up there. So yeah, throughout this, I'll see some pictures here, do hide tanning. So I'll show some of the stuff that we're doing here, hide tanning. So, when I mean that it's relational, we're bringing, young people together, we're bringing community together. We're building relationships with each other. We're strengthening their identity and helping people understand their purpose and a place of belonging in their community. Kinship is super important. Understanding you have aunties, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, that aren't necessarily your biological family, but they take on that role, in our communities and stuff. So in this work is really relational. And the offerings we make to the animals and the plant beings and our relatives out in the land, those things are really important. So, when, for instance, when we're doing hide tanning, we honor that moose or that deer or that elk, whatever animal that gave its life. We don't our mother, the earth, and we show kindness and we show love, so part of that is the offerings and the intention that you put into it. And that's part of, that understanding. It's the knowledge as well. So Gekendoswin is the knowledge that comes with it. That's a moose hide right there on the right, that picture. That's a moose hide all wound up, like real tight, and to wring it out, after a few stages. So I just thought this is a really cool picture. I wanted to put it in there, just, show people working together, people smiling, laughing, learning. It's just a really great experience. And it's important, community is important, people coming together, working together. I used to really think about how hard this work was doing our very first smoke tan moose hide. I thought it was really hard. There's a lot of work, and I said, holy cow, like, that's why you had a community of people to help you out. It's really hard to do things on your own. And so, and I guess I'll share this now, but my elder who passed away, Gordon Windemansba, he talked about, I remember there was a question I was asked, how do you build a nation of people? And he says, you work with, the people who are at the individual, they need that healing themselves. And they need to work on themselves and show themselves love again, show themselves that they're worthy, and to be kind to themselves. And once you can support those individuals, they can start to help to rebuild our families again. Our families have been torn apart by, policy of assimilation in the 60s, residential schools, policies of eradication, from the government and, different institutions, so they intentionally broke apart our families. So, that healthy individuals can work to rebuild and strengthen our families again, and healthy families, help to support and build, strong and healthy communities, and the collective of communities, builds a strong nation of people, so and once that was shared to me, that had always stuck with me, and the future ancestors. So here is our friend. She came down with her daughter, and her daughter was helping her mom with the hide. So she's there scraping a moose hide there, watching everything. That's on the left, they're dry scraping. On the right, her daughter, Igmahana, is on her back, Marjorie's back, while she's putting the brain solution onto the hide before the hide gets put into a smoker. And it was just amazing to watch their bond and watch that relationship, and to know that Igmahana is going to carry on those teachings and that knowledge, those experiences, be a part of who she is, and it'll be very grounding for her. So here's the hide that we did, when it was all done. So that's what it looked like, smoke tan, brain tan leather. Definitely took a lot of people, a lot of different hands, got put into it, and it was very special. And those are our elders who were there throughout our time when we did our hide camp. And part of it is, we were told, is we give our first hide away. So we gave our hide to the elders, even though all that work we put into it, over 2 weeks of work, we gave it away, just like when we shoot our first moose, like a rite of passage for a young man, is to give that to the community. So when I shot my first moose, I gave it out to, the community, the food bank, the elders, the families in need. I didn't keep any for myself, just gave it away to my family. And it taught me about being able to provide for others that are in need. Those teachings that came with it, those rites of passages were really important, so being able to bring those back, those understandings is super important. So intergenerational knowledge. So here we do a lot of cedar. We did a lot of cedar mat weaving. So we use inner cedar bark. We harvested it, sustainably, always with an offering and intentional about acknowledging that the spirit of that tree and Nishnawbe, and really acknowledging them and, honoring its life that it gives for us, So we made some cedar mats. Here's our teacher there with the hat. Her name is Wasan. And so, the exchange of knowledge from the elders and, our friends, it's really important. So, and then it brings up conversations about rights, about harvesting rights and harvesting responsibilities. And, we talk about, the instructions that we were given as Nishnawbe about our roles that we have to protect our kin, the four-legged, the swimmers, the birds, the crawlers, the trees, zakik, everything that grows, lands and waters, those are responsibilities that we have, and they get translated into rights when, they're, enshrined in the Constitution, of 1982, or treaty rights, they get upheld by those, but initially they come as responsibilities that we have. First, they're responsibilities, and those are the things that we have to come back to, as understanding those roles, those responsibilities that we have to our kin. So here's a really cool picture. There's a couple of the lodges that I got to visit. This is the one we have at Nimkiashbukong Teaching Lodge. This one here is one we had where we did maple sugaring. That's a good lodge that and a friend in Rankin Reserve in Batchewana. This one here is on Manitoulin Island, made out of birch bark. Big lodge, Kenjigewin take. So it really taught me about, what's schooling, what's education, where does learning happen? Learning happens on the land, it happens in ceremony, it happens in community. So really challenged for me, it challenged the notion of, what schooling is, and, always, growing up feeling this pressure where I had to prioritize Western schooling and education, and I still value Western education. It's taught me a lot, and it has its role and its importance as well. But our knowledge, our education systems of knowledge are also valid, and that's what it taught me, and that's what helped to really strengthen my identity and to no longer carry shame, is that there's so much knowledge that, Western science is now looking to Indigenous peoples to, fill in those gaps, or they're coming to conclusions where, Indigenous peoples already had those conclusions. So, it became a sense of pride for me. So that's what I try and bring to the young people. So here, just going to start going on some of the stuff that we're doing. So I do a lot of harvesting on the land. So I love harvesting my food from the land, medicines. So here's some wild leeks, Jagongujik. Harvest them in a sustainable way, and always making those offerings. Here's Wagangin, which are fiddleheads, ostrich ferns, fiddleheads. They're really tasty, good, nice, awesome spring delicacy. And so I harvested them some this year, and I made a nice dish. So here I made some potato, bacon, wild leek soup. It was super awesome. It was really good, to have that sustenance from the land, it's a sense of pride and really localizing where we're getting our food from, and spending that time out there, it was super important for me. And here is another dish that I had, some wild cranberries. Shkaabe is something that I love getting, and banana, that partridge or rough grouse. I've been getting into a lot of mushrooms as well, so harvesting mushrooms, incorporating them into my meals. And so we made this really awesome dish with some apples, wild apples that we picked, maple syrup. It's just really awesome to have this amazing meal that we had from harvesting from the land. It was super delicious, and it was really it was filling for not only physically, but, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, it just was filling in a way that it's really hard to describe, but, and so this is what I advocate for. I'm here, I do a lot of harvesting of natural materials. So I love doing basket work. I'm learning this a lot. So here we did elm bark. So we harvested the elm bark and I made this beautiful basket. Some help from my friend Nimki Gayashk. He's from Wapo, Kwajnong. And so he helped me along with this basket. And so we were very intentional about harvesting this basket because, certain trees you can harvest a bark in a certain way at a certain time of year and the tree won't be harmed. But with elm trees, it's most likely that they will die, those trees. So you're very intentional about taking that bark. So we'll cut the tree and we'll take all the bark from the entire tree, incorporate that into, we make sure we use everything. So that's the basket that I made. And then I was like, well, I'm going to fill it up with berries. So, blueberry picking, blueberries, minan, there's strawberries, odemanan, and Shkaabe, the cranberries there. So, it was very intimate experience that I had when I was harvesting. I got to pick berries, and I didn't meet my grandmother. She passed away when my dad was 5 when he was a boy. And so, but I was out berry picking with my uncle, my dad's brother. And I said, hey, do you think your grandmother, your mom would have picked berries? He said, of course she did. And in that moment, we sat there and we felt like we were connected with my grandmother who was, passed on, and we felt really close with her while we're out in the berry patches. And we shared that moment together and reminded us to be, very respectful and to honor those berries and the plants, that and not to overpick and over harvest, but to do it in a sustainable way. Same with birch bark. There's a certain time of year when birch bark is ready to be harvested, and that's when what I was told is when the fireflies are out. You see fireflies? That's when the birch will come off of the tree with ease, without any effort, and it actually won't harm the tree at that time of the year. You can harvest birch and then the tree will survive. Or when the wild roses, when they bloom, those flowers when they bloom. So that's what I was told. So, and there's a basket that I made and with some roots that we harvested. So there's lots to learn there, but I can't really get into all of it. So fishing too, I come from a family of fishermen, spend on the water. And so eating fish, preserving fish, boiling fish, however we eat fish, really honoring the fish. So then I learned from a friend that you can make fish skin leather. And I was like, holy cow, no way, that's amazing. So then I was like, I have to learn how to do this. So it's the process of making fish skin leather. And, it was quite the amazing experience that we got to do. And we got to show, demonstrate and learn. So I learned from Amber Sandy, who taught me. You can find her on Instagram. She has a really awesome tutorial about it. So Amber Sandy, check her out. Here's a little video to shows you this fish skin leather. This walleye fish skin leather here. Pretty awesome, pretty happy how it turned out. So I want to be making some vamps. I actually traded this particular leather for some seeds at a food gathering that I went to. It was a barter night and we traded. There was no buying things, you only had to trade things. And I traded that for some beautiful seeds that were kept by the Oneida people in Wisconsin. That's very special. And there's some Moni are out there working on some fish skin, and there's some of the earrings that were made. Christy Buckcourt made those earrings, so she's really talented. But yeah, she made those. It's really awesome. And maple syrup, that's another thing that we do a lot. So I got 2 minutes, so I'm going to try and speed this up here. But so I also work with the high school. I decided to work with the high school since the pandemic hit because they weren't getting the experiences that I felt like they need to have. So here we did some tap the trees. This is my nieces and nephews here. And so we made some maple sugar right at the school. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, really awesome, right in the school. And so they got to see what the, making the, Topic. Who's up next? Making that bigu. I can't remember what's called in English. The bigu, that stuff, the candy, taffy. So it's awesome, and this is what the sugar looks like. You know, it's just awesome. So it was really cool to see people, the young people, when they granulated. So another thing we did in the school is we made use of a tower garden where we grew food in the school. So had some fresh meals, you know, and it's still going right now. There's that from outside, inside. There's some of the food there that we have right inside the classroom and the culture room. So, and you know, I think that's really important and valuable. You know, so saving seeds, you know, growing our own food is really important as healing work as well. So some pottery stuff that we do as well. So yeah, that's just, you know, but some of the work that I do is, you know, working with young people and bringing them out to the land or bringing these things to them. And it's really amazing when you hold space for young people to you know, learn together, the relationships that they build with their peers and their family, whether, you know, you're in a classroom on the land, it's different. And, you know, it really supports their well-being and their confidence, and, you know, helps them, you know, with their pride in a way too, you know, because I carried a lot of shame growing up, and it led me to drugs and alcohol, and it was, you know, culture that really brought me back. So yeah, just some of the work that we do on Nymph Youth Collective on Instagram or on Facebook. So check us out. Be happy to answer questions afterwards. So yeah, appreciate Miigwech. Thank you all for listening. I guess we'll move on. Out.
Miigwech, Quinn. I always love seeing all the you know, the awesome things that you do and on your Instagram. I always like to see everything. So miigwech for sharing tonight. And I think that Ernie is here. If Ernie wanted to finish up, as I think that was what we decided. Right? Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
So we'll put up the slide deck and pass it on to Ernie.
Yeah. Where was I again? Filtrations. Oh yeah, sorry, my internet has cut out. Sorry, guys, res internet. So all right. Let's see where I start off. The lakes and streams. Like I was continuing off the health and physical, the health and the physical environment, protecting the environment for the 7 generations. Yes, like I was continuing on with my journey. As you see here, photos. Reconnecting and connecting to our environment, and mostly for our health. You know, it takes a long time doing the process of processing of hunting the moose. You know, finding it, tracking it, getting it, and then gutting it, and then also processing that meat. And if you want to do the next one, Winter, that helps me continue with this next slide here. You want to go over one, Winter? Okay. And that helped me throughout my huntings and everything that I do, trapping. It's not only, like I said, it's not only for a thrill of hunting. It's to help out other communities. It connects me to other communities, family members, to help out with food, whatever they need, even going out, just helping them with medicines or anything they need for the lodges and stuff. And not only that, it helps us connect back to our youth. It's always about our youth, and it's always about the lands. Like I always talk about, it's always about our lands, reconnecting ourselves with the youth, and meeting a lot of good people on the way, like other communities. When I was in Saskatchewan, meeting there. But not only that, it's just learning from each other, learning from experiences, and learning from their, you know, the rights and wrongs and the animals and everything like that. And I think I have like about 5 minutes, but here's my grandpa. This is why I do a lot of the work that I do, is because I'm inspired by my grandpa. You know, like I said, he was one of the group of 7, you know, and my dad. And like I said, he made a big name for himself through his art, through his language, and he put a lot of his cultural in his language, into his art, in his teachings. You know, there's a lot you can learn from art itself, and just a picture of the image of our history. You know, our history holds so much. It goes back to our Ojibwe's, you know, to our birch bark scrolls. You know, we hold a lot of birch bark scrolls, and a lot of history that holds a lot of songs, maps, memories, stories, and, you know, our geometric lands and stuff like that. And that's why it made me do what I wanted to do, to grow up as a young adult coming into a young male, is fighting for my community. And the one who inspired me is my grandpa Eddie Cobiness and my dad Ernest Cobiness. You know, like if you see there, if you want to look up the name, you guys can find our family's names in Facebook or wherever. If you guys want to, you know, reach out to us, and, you know, even if you guys want us to build a lodge or roundhouse in your community, we're more than welcome. But like I said, I just wanted to take this time, finish up. I'm sorry I got cut off by internet and lost my train of focus there. But like I said, I just want to honor everyone that's here on this call, and the ones who just joined, and the ones who had to listen to me. I wish I didn't get cut off, but the internet got me. But I would say Chimi Gwitch, and thanks for Quinn for speaking, and hope for Jasmine to have a good slideshow presentation. So thank you.
Much, Ernie. We're so glad that you were able to make it back on, and for you to share all your knowledge that you have with us and your wonderful presentation. We will move on to Jasmine now, whenever Jasmine is ready.
Yay, hello everyone. Mainganankwe in Adishnakas, magazine that do them. I was raised on, like I said in my bio, on Lake of the Woods, and I'm really thankful for Quinn and Ernest. Very valuable. You sound like you're very, very old people. Sound like you're elders, and you speak very well. And I'm really grateful I got to be invited here and be invited to speak with everyone. I do not have a slide presentation. I'm going to connect with you guys in a different way. Not because I didn't have the time or anything, but because the knowledge is so expansive when it comes to working with the plants in general. I guess where I'll start is, I think we all kind of start from a place of necessity, like we have a need to be able to recover and heal. And mine was a really sad story. I'm not going to go into the sad story, but I got some bad news when I was 26, and I had to search really hard within myself to try to find a sense of healing, because Western medicine couldn't help me, and still cannot help me, because that's just, it's science. Science has to catch up, which was interesting because Quinn said it, that finally science is going to be catching up with Indigenous knowledge, and that's absolutely the case. So I found, I don't know, I guess a healer found me, or I found a healer, however that works. Our energies came together, and it was Maestro Juan Flores Salazar in the Peruvian Amazon in Mayantuyacu. And I have many friends, Indigenous friends here from Canada, who practice multiple different ways of living in the world in general, because it's all one thing. We are all one thing. Like, we're not separate from the land. Like Quinn and Ernest said, you know, if the land gets ill, we get ill. There's no separation. And I speak about this pretty often as I teach at 7 Generations Education Institute here in Kenora. And I'll tell people, well, in Grassy Narrows, I don't want to pick the plants, not saying it's a bad thing, but because the muskeg releases methyl mercury normally, and the high amounts of methyl mercury in the area has completely contaminated everything. So how can you not bioaccumulate, like Quinn said, to not bioaccumulate a lot of these compounds into your body through using the plants, through eating the fish. Like, how do we do that? So I spoke with David Suzuki one time. I got to meet him. And I said to him, I'm like, why don't we just use the plants to recover the land? He couldn't answer my question. He's a geneticist. That's not his strength. But I think it's a really great idea because there's a lot of plants that live on the land that can accumulate a lot of these poisons for us, like broccoli. Broccoli is really great because broccoli can pick up junk in your body in general. So eat your vegetables, as your mother or anybody would ever say. But I just like to talk about how we're definitely not separate. We're not separate from the land at all. And so that's how I've interacted with the land, going forward. So I work with the Shibogama First Nations Council, working on their diabetes strategy, trying to help to use the land to recover a lot of these symptoms that people experience. And, I went to university for quite a number of years, and all the research that I read said that no matter what, it was inevitable that Indigenous people were going to get diabetes. And I said, how could that be the case? I know multiple individuals who are 70, 80 years old who don't suffer from that. But I've had a lot of people argue with me, a lot of scientists argue with me, saying that that's definitely the inevitable thing. And I don't like to think about it like that, because a lot of these people that didn't experience diabetes or any pre-diabetes or symptoms like that did not eat sugar, rarely had flour, rarely had things that colonization had, that settler populations brought here and coerced us in a way to eat the way that settler society ate. And I'm not saying, sugar is bad or flour is bad. I'm not going to say anything is really bad. This is all part of the story, essentially. But European individuals, like my dad was Ukrainian, so he was used to eating white flour. My mother's Cree, so she was used to eating, muskrat and beaver. And so it's a strange dichotomy that's inside of me, like a strange way of seeing the world that's within me. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but what it does to the body for individuals that are not used to eating sugars and flours, like this is understandable to me when I think about the outcomes for individuals. So I don't like that idea that it's an inevitability. I don't like. I say, show me the research. Show me the research. I purposefully learned to read research, which was painstaking, by the way, because I just don't think like that. I think in the realm of the plants. So it was really hard for me to understand what affinity was versus binding versus all of these very, to me before, was high-end words where I couldn't understand entirely. And even my professors will tell you that I didn't completely understand. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background that way. Now, when it comes to the plants, the plants are my everything, like everything. So when I went to South America, I drank everything they'd given me because I needed help to recover my body. I needed some really big help that no one could help me with. And the first thing you deal with is your spirit, of course. Of course, I know this. Traditionally, I know this. And so I helped my spirit to recover, but that was through the use of the avenue of my heart. And my heart, if it was helping me to recover, because it was helping me to see things more. And during my time spent in South America, I think I spent, like when people say they go on a vision quest for 4 days, I went on one for a month and a half, and then, you know, years later, or a couple years later, I would go for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I visited this place 6 different times, and each time I was given some insight about the plants, not just the plants in South America. I don't understand those plants either completely. I was getting messages from the forest here, and the forest was teaching me about how to interact with the land and about how to respect the land, about why to put my tobacco down. Okay, so that's always the first thing that you do. So I want to thank the group here that invited us all for sending your tobacco, because a lot of people forget. They forget with me about why you want to send your tobacco, because tobacco is the first healer. It is the first plant medicine healer and helps you connect with everything. So it's not just, it's not only, you know, sending your prayers to Creator. It's not only that. It's that this medicine has been here for more than 10,000 years. And the reason why it's been here for more than 10,000 years is archaeologists found that in the spirit mounds just around the Rainy Lake area, they found a smoking pipe that had a particular plant that came from South America. It does not grow even in Central America. It comes from South America. So what I think is that tobacco would have traveled from, say, we'll say the northern area of South America through the like across Panama into the Gulf of Mexico, and then straight into the Mississippi. And the Mississippi River completely goes all the way to Lake Superior, which spreads out. Those are highways. These waterways are highways that we would have used. So it's very important that we learn how to, you know, we learn a birch bark canoe. It's very important that we learn how to traverse these waters. And that's what I love about Lake of the Woods. That's my whole everything. I'm in Rat Portage Bay right now, just off the lake, which is where Cadence said she was from. She's from Washishkanibum, right? Yeah, because your dad's my cousin. Like, it's always, we always got family somewhere, don't we? Yeah, and he's a very handsome man. But the tobacco, though, this is how it would have traveled from South America. This is probably, you know, 50 leaves piled upon each other, and the leaves are probably, I can't even, I don't know what the circumference would be at all, but they would be very large. And I've grown this plant before, and it is very large. And then they pack them all together, and then they let them ferment, and then they turn it into a log. That's what we call it, a log. And this log can travel for years. It can go for years before it actually gets broken down. So this was our traditional tobacco. And traditional tobacco comes from, say, the western side of Turtle Island, and Virginia tobacco traveled along the eastern side of Turtle Island, so the California kind of area. This stuff is traditional to us, and if you smell it, it's very strong, it's very powerful. Every pipe carrier that I've given this to before they sing, they're like, whoa, I know that stuff. They could tell the power of it. But you always need to put your tobacco down. And I was taught in South America, I was taught to blow the tobacco. So you don't inhale it, you blow it to the plant, because then before you take the plant, not necessarily in its entirety, before you take the plant, it actually gets to have a smoke with you. Like it gets to breathe it in, because it breathes in what I breathe out, and vice versa. Like it's a whole cyclic thing. That we all absolutely know that. It's a big cycle. So for us to collect from the land, the plants from the land, from animals from the land, eventually my body is going to go into the muskeg. Like that's maybe hypothetically, but eventually it's the whole cycle. That's why the strength of the 7 generations. And that's why I was so honored to be asked to teach at 7 generations as well. It's very exciting for me. So I like to give that little bit of history, because I studied a lot in university, but it really, it doesn't hold a candle to the knowledge actually acquired on the land, like Ernest and Quinn got. Like there's nuances that you can gather that you cannot gather without actually doing what you're doing. So I have a friend in Fort William First Nation. You might know her, Helen Pelche. She's fantastic. She's a birch bark master. And if you've ever seen anything that she's made of birch bark, it's stunning. And it blows me away. So I went to go visit her. I was pregnant to go visit her because I wanted to make a birch bark carrier for my baby. Turns out I lost the baby. That's life, right? But she taught me how to make it. And then I was looking at all of the works that she's doing. And I think she went to fashion show just recently, but she showed me all of her work and I'm like, wow, what are you doing? And she said, I'm carving the wigwas. And so she carves this particular layer of a certain type of birch bark. And what she's actually carving is she's carving the medicine from it. And so when I looked at it, I'm like, hey, that's medicine that we cook, that I cook all the time, that we collect from the birch tree, because it's the underbark. So she had honored me with this this beautiful piece, completely stunning. And she always writes, she writes on the back, to Jasmine with love, of course, and where it came from. But that's why she calls it winter birch bark, is because I'd given her these teachings about how to collect from the birch and how, and why we collect a certain portion of the medicine from the birch and what it actually does and everything like that. She was excited, and I was very excited too. Like she's so cool. So I'm very thankful for all those things that I've learned. And then I have another friend. I don't know how it happens, but the plants just come at me all the time. They come at me, and then a friend of mine came over to my place and was like, hey, do you want this piece of chaga? And I'm like, whoa, that's a huge piece of chaga, right? And at the time when I was given this, I didn't have the teachings about it because I didn't sit with the plant. Like in South America, I sit with the plant for a very long time and I learn the properties of the plant just by the spirit of it. It just teaches me that. And our plants here do the same thing, and they're very sweet and they have very sweet songs, and you can learn the songs from the plants. I haven't learned the song of the chaga yet, but people continually will give it to me. And so this was this winter's harvest, and wintertime is the time to harvest chaga, out of all the best times to actually pick chaga. So winter is the best time for that. And there's a lot of information out there about how to cook it and how to do this and that with chaga, and everybody's going to argue about it. I'll be honest. I say I make the best chaga tea. And I only say that because I read the actual scientific literature of what temperature the chemicals break down at. So if you cook the chaga, you simmer it for a very long time, there was a bunch of medicines that you killed out of it. And if you only simmer it, there's medicines that you can't collect from inside the birch. So there's a stepped process. If you want to learn that process, I can share that with you. It's a little bit of time to learn, but you can check it out, of course. And then, so the last thing that I would speak about is how, I collect the knowledge from the plant itself, because I've spent the time. It takes a lot of time to sit with the plant, to know the plant, know how it grows, know how it reproduces, to know all of those things and know what all of those things do. So the pollen to the flowers, to the leaves, to the stalk, to the roots, they all do different things, and they all have different times of year. And it's very fickle. But I wanted to share one little hint for you guys, for especially, nursing students who have questions who are like, well, why this? So I came up with just a general question that a lot of people ask me. And they always ask me. And because I just became a mother, so I became curious about this as well. Why does raspberry leaf work for women? Why does that work? Like, and how do we find that out? Well, you could sit with the plant for a long time. You could ask a healer, you know, about it. You could ask your midwife. Your midwife will probably tell you that. But does anybody really know why? The traditional healers and the scientists do. So what the scientists did, finally they're catching up, like Quinn said, is the scientists, they listened to the stories of, you know, the ethnobotanists and the traditional healers, and then they investigated what they said, and they found out that they were actually right. And that's just the funniest thing in the whole world to me. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do a little bit of a science-y thing here. Okay, I just got to see where I am. I'm actually writing a book for the Shibogama First Nations so that they can collect medicine that I've been teaching them for a while. Okay, just a moment. So now, what I do, and you guys can find out how to do this, is you go raspberry, and this is how I write it, chemical constituents. That's what I do. You go raspberry chemical constituents. Sorry, I'm just, my Zoom controls are funny. I have to move my stuff. So raspberry chemical constituents, and it'll come up with a whole list of stuff. And you can look, and it looks like gibberish, right? But if we look, let's see. No, sorry. If you look in this list of the chemical composition, and we're just going to be quick because I don't have a bunch of time, it comes up with this one chemical called sanguine. And sanguine, in science, we see that, like, that sang kind of word, the epistemology of the word, like the history of that word, means blood. So I was interested right away. I looked at it, and then I went to Google Scholar. So I'm just going to show you guys, if you're in university at all, you may have access to better journal articles than I would, but I want to do it the way that everyone can access it. So Google Scholar, click there, and then I go into sanguine H6. And then, oh, see, I timed myself. My time's almost up, but let's click here. Estrogenic activity of the sanguine H6 through activation of blah, 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 blah. So everybody knows that to be a woman, you have estrogen. So you can look here, and it says sanguine H6, which was isolated, demonstrated the strongest affinity for the coactivator binding site in the molecular docking analysis. Doesn't matter what you need to know. What you need to know is that the reason why this works for women is because this helps to activate women's chemical constituents in our own body. We know that. We know that about raspberry already. So you can look at, yeah, you can look at a lot of these articles. You can look on Google Scholar. I don't know if you can get access to the full article, but you can see all their references. And all of these people, they got their information from a traditional healer or an ethnobotanist who got their information from a traditional healer. So I just wanted you to know that science is slowly catching up, but it takes them a very, very long time. So yeah, and there's so many more. There's so much more about the chaga, about every plant. I've studied almost every plant, the birch bark, the Shkaabe, which is the black spruce, or the Makwa, or the Mushkigo, which is the tamarack tree. it's very, very interesting. Tamarack tree is really good for nerve issues. You know, Shkaabe really good for mental health issues because it has a lot of limonene. You can look at that up as well. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Oh, here, sorry. Anyway, you guys can all be super duper smarty pants too that way. Everybody has access to this. We're so lucky to have the internet that way so that we could, it's kind of like it qualified everything that I already knew and everything that Quinn and Ernest said as well. Like I was able to clean up my own body and then be able to learn this at all. So thank you. If you have any questions about anything in general, I would love to answer them, or you can email me. I think my email is going to be shared. Yes, there we go. And yeah, thanks for having me. And really great presentation, Ernest and Quinn. You guys blew me away. Thank you.
Much, Jasmine. I think we're going to go right into the Q&A. So if folks want to utilize the Q&A function. Jasmine, I think that we have a question for you from Michelle, which asks about how you learned about the songs of the plants that you work with.
Oh yeah, okay. So I learned how to open up to my heart, because your heart carries reverberation and each plant carries a reverberation too, and they have a sound. So honestly, I did a bunch of psychedelics in South America, ayahuasca, you probably heard of it. But once I got home, you don't have ayahuasca here. And I heard the plants. So I connected through my heart. And then the Shkaabe was the first, the black spruce was the first plant that sang to me. And it sang this very high pitched song. Like it took me years to be able to, you know, sing it high enough, because I needed to be able to learn how to do that. And it goes, yeah, very, that's just it's the sound of that tree. It's so sweet and it just wants to hug you and hold you, and yeah, it wants to love you and it wants you to love yourself. It's such a wonderful thing.
Well, Chimigwish, Jasmine, I think there's also a hand up, Michaela. So I've just allowed you to be able to share your question or comment. And all you have to do is just unmute yourself, Michaela. Okay. Well, Michaela, if you still have a question, please feel free to ask. Oh, she raised her hand by mistake. That's okay. Well, lots of fantastic comments in the chat box from everyone in terms of really enjoying the presentations, and many thank yous. I do have here, I think it's David Pitawanakwat had some comments there. I don't know, David, if you want to be able to speak to them yourself. Okay, I'm going to find you.
Sarah raised her hand as well. Sarah.
Okay.
I think I know what he's talking about. I see it in the question, the chat, the Russian word.
Yes.
For chaga. Yeah. Okay. So when I was teaching chaga in the Shibogama communities, I'm not going to tell you which community, they told me that the word was sagin. That's what they call it, except they taught me a bad word. They taught me po sagin. That's what they said to me. And you know what, anybody who Yeah, you don't say Posagan. Like, yeah, I said that in front of a chief and everything. Oh my God. No, you just say Sagan. Yeah, it's Pasagan if you're gonna say it like that. Like that's the word that the OG Cree have for it. They tricked me.
Okay, and there's a few other comments here. I have heard the term 7 generations before, but I never understood it. Thank you for that clarification. I love that. And Mim has said this has been so very interesting and honored that those who spoke shared some of their knowledge. And then David Pinawataquit was saying, LOL, Jasmine.
Yeah, because they got me.
Does anyone else have any other comments or questions, or perhaps the speakers have comments or reflections that they'd like to share in terms of last words or the webinar panel?
I think David has a question for, or a comment for Ernie.
Okay. David, I'm going to find you, and then let's see here. I'm going to allow you to talk. So if you don't mind unmuting yourself.
Ani kinawe David Pidanko Maba, miigwech kinawe, miigwech everybody for your knowledge and speaking and your wisdom. I really enjoyed this. I wanted to just say or ask. I wanted to ask Ernie what your last name meant, because I think in my head I think Cobiness. It sounds like Benes, which could mean a bird. I was just wondering if that's how you, or if it's a Nishnawbe or a dialect in one of the native languages. So I was just wondering like what your last name meant, Cobiness. Nah. And also Jasmine, miigwech for your, when I seen this this poster online, I was just scrolling through health center posters and I seen the title under you is Traditional Eco Knowledge. That's what made me want to join this presentation. And so, yeah, I'm looking at a big piece of Shkaabe here too. And that's what I was taught, was it's called Shkaabe because it's, that's our language, and versus Chaga, because everybody knows that. And so, and also for Quinn Mawasage, miigwech Nich, Mitawis, my brother's from Serpent River also. So I just want to say miigwech. You guys are very inspiring and what I do as well. So, yeah, miigwech kinawe, miigwech everybody. Merci beaucoup.
Oh, miigwech, thanks for that question. Our last name, there's quite a few of us. There's Cobinesses, and Cobinesses. They're mixed up from the Indian agencies back in the day, how they mixed up a lot of our names, and so. But the meaning is something close to like the sky and the sky beings people. I can't confirm that fully, but that's partially what our last name means, Cobiness and Cobiness. Yeah. Thank you for that question, though.
You're welcome. Well, that's kind of what birds are. They kind of fly closer to the sky, so that clears it up. Miigwech Nich.
Miigwech.
Yeah, if I'll maybe just some final comments there. So miigwech everybody for those for sharing feedback as well. But yeah, one way that it was described to me one time, and I thought it was like, wow, that's so beautiful. Talking about like trauma, intergenerational trauma, you hear that all the time. Generational trauma, residential schools, policies, 60s coup, like trauma that just, it's a cycle, right? And so some of the work that needs to be done is stopping cycles. It's easy to say, like, I'm going to stop this cycle and it's not going to live in my family anymore. Sounds so like, yeah, that's easy enough to do, but it's really hard. It's challenging. It comes with a lot of work. Then it was described to me about the work and about like implementing cycles of intergenerational healing. And I was like, wow, so to change the narrative like that, So you're stopping these cycles of trauma, and then you're replacing them with cycles of intergenerational healing. And I thought that was really powerful to frame it like that. It's a lot easier said than done. And sometimes the results from like this work that's happening might not be immediate. And I was always asked, well, you know, for funders, like, what's the return on my investment? How can you quantify, you know, the impact that, you know, the work that you're doing is having? I was like, what? Like, you know, what do you want to quantify? You want numbers? Like, I'm like, it's, you know, the impacts will be felt, you know, throughout the generations, right? It won't be something that's very immediate, you know. So there are things that can be immediate that you can use for reporting or things like that. But a lot of it is, you know, how do you show the impact of that it has on a family, you know, the relationships that are built? How do you demonstrate the knowledge that is lived on so it's not lost anymore, you know? So you know, just being mindful about, you know, when you're approaching people, you know, asking people to do this work, and having these expectations of this results immediately, something that you say, here's this tangible result, you know. Just be mindful about, you know, things that, you know, will take time. And so the healing may take a generation. You know, we had generation that took away our language and culture, and it will take generations or so to, you know, regain those things and the well-being and the healing that's needed in our community. So I guess that's just the one thing I thought that I would share in closing. So I guess maybe to everybody.
Quinn. And I think that's a beautiful way to be able to start to wrap up today's session. A lot of people are saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and Miigwech, and for sharing your journeys. Very insightful. So I just want to thank everyone for participating in this really profound webinar. I really enjoyed it and have learned a lot, as I do with every webinar. And I'd like to sincerely thank Ernie, Quinn, and Jasmine for sharing your deep knowledge of the land and for speaking from the heart. And as well, Cadence and Rachel for moderating the webinar and being an exemplar of youth leadership. And Diane, of course, for your traditional opening and closing, which will happen momentarily. Merely, of course, for bringing your greetings and for sharing your wisdom. And Winter Lipscomb from the Ontario First Nation Young People's Council for taking the lead on this webinar, and for Tanya for providing the support for this profound sharing opportunity. I'd also like to thank the planning committee members, of which there are many, and it's been a pleasure to work with the entire planning committee and being able to support you in your endeavors. Of course, Agahan Dagwas, Kim Hillman from NAN, May Cat from NAN, Bernadette de Gonzague from Chiefs of Ontario for your invaluable support in planning this webinar. And just wanted to let you know that we will email you in regard to today's webinar, linked to the evaluation survey. And when you fill it out, you'll provide us with valuable information to take away so that we can continue to create and additional webinars in a good way. And with that, you also get your certificate of attendance and the 2.5 hours of credits. And for more information, please reach out to Tanya Costa or to check out the RNAO website. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gahan Dagwas for the traditional closing.
Thank you so much, Grace. Well, let me say that, first of all, one of the challenges in my own life was to take care of my own healing. And of course, it's a journey throughout one's life because we are imperfect human beings. But every ceremony that I went into, whether it was a sun dance, an ancestor dance, whether it was a warrior dance, a contrary dance, all those ceremonies of 4 days or 4 nights of fasting, every time I went into those lodges, I went in with one prayer. And that prayer was always for the young people, that they would have the best life according to their gifts, they would fulfill their spiritual mandates, that they would bring harmony into the world with the gifts that they carry. So this evening, what I wanted to share with you were some of the final words that I heard from an elder who passed on the weekend. I was at a healers gathering, and one of these elders Nishnawbe elders passed. And one of the things that he said he was most concerned about was the minds of the people in the communities that he's close to in his region of Southwestern Ontario, worried about the minds of the people forgetting who they are, being so influenced by the outside world that they succumb to that pressure. And we had a long discussion, and it wasn't more than about 10 hours later that that elder passed away. I hold his words in my heart. And I also hold a very special dream that was shared to me by one of our Mohawk Haudenosaunee Confederacy chiefs, where the chiefs and of the Haudenosaunee, the clan mothers, the faith keepers, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and moving into the 60s, were so afraid of the loss of our language, our ceremonies, our cultures, our way of being, Haudenosaunee. And so they prayed really hard for us, that there would be a generation of young people who would awaken to that hunger and that passion for understanding culture and language. So that was my generation. And so I look to you now as this generation, and I say how grateful I am to the Creator for you, for your life, for the knowledge that you carry, the energy that you have, the passion that you have for being on the land, for listening to the plants, the wind, the water, the animal life, the bird life, all those living beings out there that speak that one language of spirit. And I'm so grateful to the Creator for each of you, for stepping into the world to be the leaders that you're going to be, and for inspiring other young people. And make no mistake about it, that there are many, many young people who are watching you and wanting to be like you. So you are setting a pathway for that generation coming underneath you. So I want to just offer these final words of gratitude and say thank you for the Creator blessing us with each of you and all of this planning committee and everybody who's listening to us this evening. I'm so grateful to you, Sangwe Tisam, our Creator, for giving us this opportunity to listen to young people from many different places who have had powerful experiences of their own healing, have relied on the wisdom of the ancestors, the ceremonies and the tools of the pipes and the shake tent and the longhouse ceremonies, to be able to pick those up and to find their strength, identity, and purpose in those ceremonies. So I give thanks this day, Creator, that you loved us so much as Ongwehongwe and Nishnawbe people, that you gave us such a beautiful way of life, that you gave us rich relationships with one another, that we find each other in these times of being like-minded, many different cultures, many distinct cultures, but being like-minded. And so this day, Creator, I give thanks for all the work that has been done to bring this webinar together. And I ask you, Creator, to watch over everyone here, your families, your clans, your nations, your communities, so that we can continue to thrive on this place, in this homeland we call our Turtle Island. Nyawa, miigwech. Miigwech, everyone.
And with that, miigwech, and just wanted to wish everyone a great night, and thank you so much for attending. Take care. Bye-bye.
Miigwech, Nandago.
Miigwech.